Welcome to Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024. We are in the book of 2 Kings, the 6th chapter. We're going to start in verse 1. The company of the prophets said to Elisha, "Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan where each of us can get a pole and let us build a place there for us to live." And he said, "Go." Then one of them said, "Won't you please come with your servants?" "I will," Elisha replied, and he went with them. So Elisha is meeting with his company of prophets, his preachers, and the movement is growing. They've outgrown the place they have, and they need to build bigger. And, of course, the thing to do is all the preachers go down and get materials and take them back and build them and build a bigger place. And he thinks this is a great plan, says, "Sure, do it." And one of them says, "Hey, would you come with us?" And he says, "Okay, I'll consent to come with you." And so, this is a good thing. The movement is growing, and they need more meeting space. So when he teaches them, because there's more of them, and he consents to help them. He's being a good minister. They're doing the work, and he agrees, "Sure, I'll go with you." Middle of verse 3. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron hack's head fell into the river. "Oh, my Lord," he cried out, "it was borrowed." Disaster! He's borrowed an iron axe head. Iron is still expensive. The man can't afford to own his own axe, so he's borrowed one, and he's cutting away, and it comes off the handle, and the head falls in the Jordan. Depending upon where you are in the Jordan, most places, since the Jordan is fairly muddy, you can't see the bottom. It's not real safe to get into the water. The water's just swift enough. You don't want to try to walk through it. You probably can't do so successfully. There are places where the bottom is shallow enough that you can see it and you can walk across, or it's shallow enough your horse can walk across. But where it fell, they can't see the axe head, so he can't reach in and grab it. It's not safe to get down in the water and feel around. And if you did walk into the water, it's probably not safe to, if you're going to walk across it, you have to stay upright and use your staff to make sure you don't fall over. You're not going to be reaching around, feeling in the dark, trying to find an axe head. It's not safe. And now he's got to repay that axe head. He can't afford it. It's a personal, small calamity. I mean, that axe head is probably worth a month of a man's labor, approximately, at the time, or a little more. It's not cheap. He's going to feel that for a while if he has to repay it. Verse 6, the man of God asked, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him this place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. "Lift it out," he said. Then the man reached out his hand and took it. So Elisha does another miracle that is recorded. I don't think we have all of his miracles recorded. This is kind of a unique miracle. Iron does not float in water. The kind of flow that would be turbulent enough that an iron axe head could tumble up in the water would be so violent you couldn't reach out and grab it. It wouldn't be safe to do so, and it wouldn't be just floating on top of the water. You'd see it roiling in the water, and if you threw a stick in, the stick would hit the water and disappear downstream. The water is still enough there that when he throws the stick in, you still see the stick and the iron head floats. And Elisha tells him, grab the borrowed axe head and take it. So the man gets to save his reputation, and he gets to return the borrowed axe head, and they get to build a place. And again, it exemplifies the kind of miracles he did. They were practical miracles. Something needed to happen. They needed to return the man's axe head to the man that they borrowed it from. How do you do that? You got to find it. You got to get it. And so they do. He's just meeting the need. And he's trusting God, and it happens. Does he have this planned out? No. He's probably quietly, fervently praying in the back of his head, God, you got to solve this one. I have no idea. Okay, cut a stick and throw it in. Okay. He sees the head floating and like, grab it out. Just a practical answer. And he handles it so nonchalantly. One of two things. Either God's telling him exactly what's going to go on, and he sees it happen, and he's seen so many miracles from God that he's almost nonchalant with God's miracles and what God's telling him, and he's just giving directions. Or he so trusts God that he knows something's going to happen and they're going to get the axe head back. And he's done so many miracles where somebody needs to be fed, somebody needs to be their debt paid, etc., 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 that he's just expecting. He knows he's got a double portion of the Spirit that was on Elijah, that did all these grand miracles that were big, public, blah, 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 and he's just expecting God to do something. And nonchalantly, hey, here, pick up that axe head. He's a practical man. Verse 8. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he says, I will set up my camp in such and such a place. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, beware of passing that place because the Arameans are going down there. So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and time again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, will you not tell me which one of us is on the side of the king of Israel? None of us, my lord, the king, said one of his officers, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel your very words you speak in your bedroom. They're at war. Aram is trying to attack Israel, and God doesn't want them to. They outnumber Israel. Israel has recovered from a famine, but the countryside still hasn't recovered completely. They're not back to strength. If there's a head-to-head battle, Israel's going to lose, and in the long term, God's sovereign will is going to fail. God can't let that happen. So he's telling Elisha, hey, tell the king. And Elisha has such a reputation that even though the king does not believe in Elisha nor his God, the king listens to what Elisha says. Now, he doesn't immediately trust. He sends out a scout and says, scout it out and see if it's true. But every time Elisha tells him it is true and he can make military planning, and they avoid a direct conflict, and they continue to thwart the king of Aram's advances into the country because he has superior military intelligence, because God's telling him what to do, even though he doesn't believe in God. And this so frustrates the king of Aram, he accuses his war council of somebody being a traitor. And they know what's going on because they're trying to listen to what's going on, and it's a typical Middle Eastern country where, everybody's out for themselves and everybody's watching everybody else and looking for weaknesses, and they're all supporting the king but trying to get ahead of everybody else. And if they found who was the traitor, man, they'd betray him themselves to get that spot, to get that honor, get that step up above everybody else. And somebody has found out how the king of Israel is learning all this stuff. They have a prophet there that good. He knows what's going on. He doesn't come to Aram. He sits in his own house and then sends messages to the king. And the thing is, the gossip in Israel, they know it's Elisha telling the king. And the king is time and time and time again, and he's getting to where when Elisha sends him a message, he's going to send the scout out to make sure it's there, but he's already making plans. It's happened enough that, okay, I'm going to start making plans like it's true while I send the scout out to make sure it's true. And he's getting good at this little game. He has superior military intelligence, and he's going to use it. And the generals on the other side know of Elisha's reputation, and they know he is a real prophet that can tell the secrets from hundreds of miles away. And there's no way they can beat that kind of military intelligence, because it's being done by God, not by men. And they're quite willing to throw Elisha under the bus because, they're not loyal to him, and, they're trying to save their own skins, because if everybody's lying the same way to the king of Aram, he can replace the whole council. Verse 13. Go find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can send men and capture him. The report came back, he is in Dothan. Then he sent horses and chariot and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the cities. "Oh, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." So the king of Aram goes, okay, I got to take care of that prophet. And Dothan is not a big city. It has a wall, but it's basically a farming village that has a wall. And it's not a big wall. You don't have the people to be able to afford a big wall. It's there that when there's a raiding band show up, everybody can run in and save their life while the raiding band goes through and steals agricultural goods and then leaves. It's not intended for a real army siege. In a real army siege, the people inside would defend it, but unless the army of the land comes up and attacks the army, they know all they're doing is buying time for the rest of the country. If a real army attacks, they're going to be defeated, but they can make a wallop in that invading army bigger than their total worth, and they can help save the country even if they lose that battle. And now they're surrounded by this huge army, and it's powerful, and it's got all the military equipment. And the servant of God gets up, the servant of Elisha gets up early. He sees it, and he comes to his master in a panic. Ah, it's there. The army's there. What do we do? Elisha says, don't be afraid. God's got this. God's got more than we do. He's going to handle it. And the servant's probably going, I've seen him do miracles. I've heard of all kinds of miracles. I mean, last month the axe head floated. But this is an army. I mean, what's going to happen? There's tales about the angel of death passing through the enemy camp. It's possible, but, what's going to happen? Verse 17. Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So Elisha already knew that God was protecting him, and he could see in the spiritual realm that God had his protection in place already. God had anticipated the king of Aram, and this was a handled action. And he looked out and saw his army protecting him, and it's the same kind of army that snatched Elijah away. Chariots of fire, horses of fire, and hillsides aren't burning up. So he knows this is the same kind of fire that Moses saw in the bush in the wilderness. He knows it's the same army that snatched Elijah up to heaven. And he knows God's going to protect him. He knows he's been torquing off the kings that are enemies of Israel. He doesn't have to know which one it is. He just looks out and goes, yeah, God's got a bigger army out there. And so he prays that the servant's eyes will be opened and the servant will see what God's doing. Verse 18. And then the servant saw. The servant saw it. And he knows God's got us. We're safe. He doesn't know how this is going down, but he sees an invincible army that's larger than the army that's surrounding him. He knows he's going to be protected. Verse 18. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike these people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness as Elijah had asked. So Elisha has been talking with God enough to know the army is not going to kill this army. That's not God's purpose. I mean, this is the same man that early in his career was walking down the road and some youth were making fun of him, jeering him, and he asked God for bears to protect him, and the bears ran out and mauled a bunch of youth. If God had wanted them dead, God's army would have attacked and they would have all died, and that'd been the end of it. That's not what God wanted. And so God told him to ask to blind them. So God told Elisha what Elisha needed to pray so that God would do it. God meant to blind these people. Verse 19, Elisha told them, this is not the road and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for. And he led them to Samaria. So he led this army that's all blind. And after they were blind, they're confused. They don't know what to do. And he says, you're in the wrong place. they probably thought, no, we were in the right place a minute ago, but we're blind now and we can't tell, and somebody's saying, hey, follow me. And what else do they do? He leads them into Samaria, where there's going to be a big enough standing army that if they do cause trouble, they're going to lose. And the king of Israel is the one that needs to handle armies. So he leads them to Samaria. Verse 20. After they entered the city, Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see. Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and they were inside Samaria. So Elisha heals them of their blindness. He asked God to blind them. He led them to Samaria, which is about 40 miles away, by the way. So this is not a trivial trip. It's a 2-day journey if they marched hard. It's a 4-day journey if they took a typical trip. Elisha spends a lot of time with these blind men. And obviously he did that with his servants. And so he brings them to Samaria. When he gets them into the marketplace in Samaria, then he asks God to heal them. And they see they're in Samaria. They're in the enemy capital. Verse 21. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elijah, shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them? I mean, he's excited. He's got a portion of the army in where he's got it basically captured. Should he kill them? Should he, make the army that's going to attack him that much smaller? He's thinking like a military man. And a Middle Eastern military man. He's going to fight like Middle Easterns fight wars. They kill the army first, and they go tear the rest of the country up and kill everybody and loot it and send their own people to live in the land. And so he's now got an easy kill zone. A bunch of captives. Of course, that's immoral, but he's not an immoral man. Verse 22, do not kill them, he answered. Would you kill men you have captured with your own sword and bow? Setting food and water before them so that they may eat and drink, and then go back to their master. So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. They're prisoners of war. They've been captured by Elisha. So the moral thing is you feed them and you negotiate their release. But Elisha is actually making a bigger point. God's going to protect Elisha. Don't torque God off. Because those men are going to come back and like, we were at Dothan where we were supposed to be. We were surrounding this city. Suddenly we're all blind. We get led to Samaria. We're in the town square. The man that's led us prays, and we can see, and we're in Samaria, and that's the prophet. And the king wants to kill us all, and he says, no, don't do that. Feed them and send them home. And they're of the opinion, yeah, if God can do that and God spared our life, we're not going back because God may not be so gentle with us next time. We may just find that the angel of death kills everybody or something, Let's face it, they'd been part of that army. Several generations before, about 200 years before, maybe a little more than that, 250 years before, when the angel of death had gone through the camp and killed 180,000 people in one night, and everybody slunk off in terror and vacated Israel. in the times of the judges. They're concerned that, this could happen again. Yeah, we'll attack because they're an enemy. We're soldiers. We're brave. But we're also not foolhardy. There's other enemies. There's softer targets. And this God is woken up protecting this country. So, we all got blind. We all got healed. We got a meal. And we've come home. And let's not go back. And the king of Aram is like, yeah, this isn't working. Every time we invade, they know about it. They know where we are. They defend against it. We're not getting surprise attacks in. We're not getting raids in. This isn't working. And I can't even capture the prophet. He's thinking like a military man. A superior military force against a prophet should work, right? Except this is God he's fighting. And he realizes, wait a minute, I'm fighting against Israel's God. I'm not fighting gods. I'm fighting it. I'll fight armies. And we'll see whose army, whose God is superior by who wins the battle. But I ain't sending an army against a God. That's an unfair fight. Nope, not doing it. And so he keeps his army home. They go other places, but they don't come back into Israel. So God protects Israel in a very special way by convincing the king of Aram not to invade. And Elisha has done another set of miracles. And the king of Aram and his generals are convinced that Elisha is a prophet of a true God. The king of Israel still isn't convinced that Yahweh is the true God. He worships his own, but he knows Elisha is a real prophet. And he's going to let him, when he says something, he's going to pay attention. Even if he's not going to be obedient. He might be obedient militarily. He might be, but he's even obedient in diplomacy. But he's got a certain kind of begrudging respect for Elijah. He called him Lord. He acknowledged that the prophet was higher in rank than the king. And he obeyed the prophet when he told him directly what to do. Holy Father, have us to have that kind of faith in you, that we will understand that no matter the circumstances, you are still in charge. That even when it looks like evil is winning locally, it's just a short-term victory. That eventually you will win and your will be done. That yes, nation will rise against nation and great evil will come on this earth. But you've got us. And you're protecting us. And even if you take us out of this world by death or by rapture or whatever, we're protected. We're safe. And you will give us justice. And the unrighteous will die. Lord, we do look forward to your return to earth to reign in righteousness and truth and peace. We look forward to that. Have us to be faithful in the meantime to proclaim your word. And Lord, in this coming week, as we proclaim your word to the children that are coming to Vacation Bible School, ask that you send your Spirit among them, that they would respond and accept you as the Lord and Savior. And that if they don't accept you this year, the seeds will be planted in their heart and growing, and they will accept you soon. In your holy name, amen. I am your host, Frank Reich, Associate Pastor of Family and Ministry at Grace Fellowship Baptist Church. And this has been the Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, July, I think it's 6th. 3rd, 2024. This is recorded on Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. Next week, the 26th, is going to be the middle of VBS, so we will not meet then. We will meet the week after, the day before July 4th. And that will pick back up then. Please pray for VBS. I hope to see you tonight at the Bible study. I hope to see you Sunday at church. I hope to see you all week at VBS. I hope to see you next Sunday at church. And hope to see you the Wednesday after that at church. If I don't, we'll see you here on YouTube. Have a blessed week.